mean, short and sweet, I basically had this like dropped on my head life change the last like 2 years, divorce, everything. And it was like,
Not awesome, but you know what I
but
mean?
it was more to find the purpose. My life lesson is betrayal, to find unconditional love. And so, like, the whole premise of like magic or like talk about taco and different things, like, there's humans out there that have these abilities, and
Yes.
we've kind of shunned them, or we don't believe in them, or but it's like,
Exactly.
but let's have a conversation about this. Like, why did the CIA do remote viewing? Why has this all been in existence,
Oh
but we
my
stopped
gosh,
talking
yes.
about this? So, like, if you look at it from my perspective, I see it as like a performance. Like, if humans can be more in tune with their emotions, what else can we create? And then I'll even drop some questions in here, because
Yeah.
I'm going to Greece. I've
Mm,
been meditating a lot on it. I don't have all the answers, but
awesome.
um, it's interesting because we're going there to remember who we are as humans.
Uh-huh.
But like, my question is like, why did like the Greeks or the Egyptians leave all these monuments or like totems for us to remember? But now, like, why don't we do, like, where is that in our modern society? Like, have we just forgotten? Is it not supposed to be here? Like, why?
Right.
Like, what's the connection that's missing?
Yes, I love it.
So
Hello, everyone. Welcome. Lori here. Welcome to How Do You Spirit? And I have a guest today that I'm so excited to have here with me. Mike,
yep,
hi. Nice to meet you.
it's likewise.
This is the first time that we're meeting in person. We chatted a little bit on the phone a few days ago. And we're going to start with Mike sharing his spiritual story, a short version,
Yep,
right? You
more
said you
than
kind
happy.
of had a big awakening.
Yep.
And I want to talk about that for a minute. And then we're going to go into some really interesting, amazing things. I can't wait. So let's tell me a little bit about what happened.
Yeah. So, well, first, thank you, everybody, and it's a pleasure to be here. Like, you have really good energy, and it's a very safe place. And
Thank
I'm
you.
excited to see kind of what comes through and what we'll be able to talk about. So it's
Yes,
going to
me
be a lot of
too. It's
fun.
going to be amazing.
Um, as far as like my kind of spiritual awakening, and I think what like, growing up, I always believed in magic, whether it was like Harry Potter or Star Wars or just like something always felt real about it.
The
The
mystical.
mystical side, like,
Yes.
why do we put limits around what we can think or create? And like, I was always a tinkerer and always would build things and always question why people would do certain things. Like, it just didn't make sense to me.
Uh huh.
Um, and one of my like master programs is funny to find out, like, we're all humans. We all have these things that we behave in a certain way because of certain things that happen. And
Mm
my
hmm.
dad was very
Okay.
strict LDS.
Uh
He's
huh.
even the bishop right now. He thinks I'm an outcast. Love him. Hi,
Oh,
dad, if you hear this.
oh
But
no.
like, one of the things that I like had to like learn was like, I didn't like the word no. Like, when someone told
Okay.
me no, it just didn't feel good.
Yeah.
And so that was kind of
Did you feel
something
limited by it?
limited,
Yeah.
or
Yeah.
like, it just didn't make sense. And I didn't understand why until later on, but like, really trying to find the truth or understand things was always something that I would seek towards. And um when someone would tell me no, it felt like it was a limit, but also like I could
Mm-hmm.
see that there was truth on the other side, so I just kept going.
Okay.
And so that was kind of like, I always felt that it was always part of me. Everything in my life has been kind of curated in a way. Like, I kind
Mm-hmm.
of pinch myself, and obviously we can look back and we can have gratitude. I feel like I've been very blessed and also very privileged.
Uh-huh.
I will say, like, I have a very unique story. Like, I could say like I've been handheld through this spiritual awakening. Like, a lot of people don't have that. So like, I first acknowledge that I've been like very well taken care of.
Okay.
Um,
And you're talking from a spiritual
spiritual
sense.
sense or financial sense,
Okay,
because a
okay.
lot of people
All
in this like human experience, like, I mean, there are hard things that wake people up. Like,
yes.
it could be like complete rock bottom with an addiction, it could be
Mm-hmm.
divorce, it could be almost a near death experience, there could be a whole bunch of different things.
Yeah.
And my path was, it was hard, but it was still like very comfortable in a way. And so I like,
Okay.
I take ownership of that. And
Mm-hmm.
part of like what going through, whether it was through undergrad and meeting my wife, now ex-wife, we're going
Mm-hmm.
through a divorce, and it's some of the most beautiful things. But about 2 years ago, 3 years ago, in the dynamic of our home, there was a lot of depression, anxiety, and a lot of
Mm-hmm.
hostility. And so it forced me to go into places and meditate and find safety and solace in ways that I didn't think were possible. It was just like the
Wow.
only refuge that I could get was my own time and being alone. And, mainstream, I kind of talked about meditation, and I had always been an athlete. And so I was never like done with intention, but once I needed to, it really pushed me to a spot to really start understanding how the mind works
Uh-huh.
and how we can think differently if we can really calm our mind and get to a place where we can understand ourselves.
Huh?
And so once I started doing that, and at the time I was investing into companies that were dealing with mental health and consumer good products. And we had a lot of psilocybin mushroom companies come across our desk. And
Mm-hmm.
I was like, wait, could this help in like my home environment? And I just got really curious. And this was
Okay.
about 3 years ago. And it was one of those things where spirit will sometimes just put something in front of you and you'll be like, wait, I got to take a look at this. And you're like,
Why?
why is this happening?
Yep.
And all of a sudden you start like pulling the thread, and all of a sudden you're like, oh, this
I
is all
get
making
it.
sense now.
Yeah.
And so I had one of those like really miraculous things, and it was a ketamine company. And so in October of 22, I started doing ketamine therapy,
Okay.
and then fell into my first mushroom journey. And I was like, whoa, magic is real. And then I was like, at that point, there was no going back.
Right.
And then brought me on this whole beautiful journey, from meeting some of the top shamans to the top mediums that we're both friends with,
Wow.
to some of the top people in the world. Right now,
Mm-hmm.
I'm really good friends. We're going to Greece with her name's Michaela Gray. She's runs a consciousness institute, and she is an unbelievable human, and her curriculum is just far beyond anything I've ever seen. And it kind of just taught me that like everything that we assumed about reality, make it like 10 times bigger, 10 times grander,
Uh-huh.
and it's all real.
Yeah.
And it's not even to the point where like we have this term woo woo, but it's starting to merge science and spirituality, and it's
Mm-hmm.
starting to make sense. And my like, I think we're at the most beautiful time in all of human history where it's all coming in at this time period
Yeah.
for a greater and bigger reason.
Yes.
And we have to step back and say, why is this happening? And how can we be the best human that we can be?
Uh-huh. So when you meditate, if you don't mind sharing what, and you don't have to go into real big detail, but what does your meditation practice look like? I always get so curious because we all meditate in different
Yeah.
ways,
Yeah.
Does it take you long to really, relax and get to that place, or is it easy for you? Do you have to be in a closed, quiet area? How does
Mm.
that work for you? What do you do?
That's a really good question. And I want to phrase like before like I even answer that directly, because I
Uh-huh.
was I was really thinking about this, because last night I was actually in a float tank, and
Oh,
I
nice.
only planned on 2 hours, and they left me in there for 4.
Oh my gosh.
And I was reflecting on the experience, and whether it's a float tank or meditation or
Mm-hmm.
psilocybin or all these things. I also want to preface that everybody starts at a different point. So
Yeah.
whatever I say is very different than what other people might experience. And so I have
Yes.
empathy and compassion. I've been doing it for a while.
Okay.
When it comes to meditation, there's a lot of different styles, but also different ways to meditate. So
Mm-hmm.
for different reasons, whether it's like calming the mind or the body, because
Mm-hmm.
the body actually holds a lot of that energy,
Yes,
and we can
absolutely.
calm the mind, but we also sometimes need to calm the body, whether it's taking a walk, resetting our nervous system.
Mm-hmm.
But for me, like I have different intentions with my meditation. So I'll either be doing it reflectively of like an emotion or event that happened,
Okay.
or I'll go into a spot of creation. So there are different types of meditation. One is like if I'm going in and I just had a really big argument with somebody, or I want to reflect on it, that's when I can calm my nervous system, replay what was happening.
Mm-hmm.
Whether it's a calm, quiet spot or going on a walk can be meditative,
Yep.
but allowing those thoughts to come up where you can reflect on them,
Uh-huh.
or in a meditative state, going in and saying, okay, like, what do I want my business to be? What do I want my future to look like? And going into feeling those emotions,
Mm-hmm.
that's another way I meditate. So it really
Okay.
depends the attention of like what I want to get out of it.
Okay. That sounds great. Yeah, because you can't focus on everything at once, or you know,
Yeah.
like you said, one thing at a time. That's awesome. Do you do you do you meditate for long periods of time? Are they short, or does that just depend on what your intention is with it?
A lot of it is the intention.
Okay.
And, recently I've kind of I've stopped trying to force the outcome of meditation in the
Uh-huh.
sense of like when you first start doing, you're like, I want to do XYZ. And then
Right.
when you get into the meditative state, all of a sudden this other thing comes in. You're like, wait, I wasn't ready to deal with that. But when you
Yeah.
kind of sit with that thought that comes in, that's actually the
Hmm.
most important thing that you need to work on right then.
Yeah, whatever comes to mind first. Yeah.
And, yesterday in the float tank, I had like my dad, my grandpa, some other male figures of these instances come in. I was like, oh my gosh, I was so uncomfortable. I didn't know what this was. I thought I was going to go do some other things. And I was like, well, I guess I have to do this first.
Uh-huh.
But what actually happens is when we start seeing those things that come up and then we
Hmm.
resolve them, then we can go into the deeper states that we need to. So
Hmm.
it really depends on what the journey
Yeah.
is for the day.
So true. So the float tank, I'm curious about that. I've heard of them.
Uh,
Do are you like in water, or
yeah.
and you were in water for 4 hours?
It was like a whole
Did you come out like a prune?
pretty much. I was like, I mean, was a whole new experience, and I'm a Scorpio, so like
Uh-huh.
I love water. I always
Okay,
have,
okay.
and
So,
I didn't realize like how much I would love it.
uh-huh.
But yeah, you're in water. It's
The whole time.
salt, and you're literally floating. They have lights in there.
Oh my
Music is
gosh.
playing, and all of a sudden, I mean, I was able to go into the deepest meditative state I've been in a long
Wow.
time, really quickly. So
I'm gonna have to try that.
highly recommend.
I'm totally in. Yes.
Highly
I'll get
recommend
the
it.
info from you after. That sounds so amazing. So so you went through, you said, a divorce, right?
Yeah.
And did you feel like that's kind of when you woke up even more? Like
Yeah.
became more connected?
Yeah, I want to like I think this is really helpful, and I think this will get into a later conversation of like
Mm-hmm.
waking up or being human, because in like being human, we have states of consciousness. And
Uh-huh.
so as we evolve or we clear out patterns that we fall into or emotional trauma, we actually get into a more natural state of happiness or bliss. So
I agree.
Dr. Hawkins
Yes.
actually quantified this. There's books about it, mapping consciousness, that you can quantify what state people are in and how you're existing. And the goal isn't to stay at one state, it's how do you fluctuate in and out of these states.
Mm-hmm.
And so, whether it's divorce or a job, if that situation or that energy that you're in is preventing you from being your best self, maybe it's like not aligned with you, or the boss is toxic, or your partner is giving you the wrong energy.
Mm-hmm.
Like, if you're still allowing that to happen, you're not going to be able to progress until
Exactly.
you're
Yeah.
out of that state. And so, absolutely, ever since I've stepped out of that, my energy is starting to come back. I feel more alive. I'm able to show up differently,
Mm-hmm.
and also take all that wisdom that I had in that environment to bring with me into what I do and what I create next.
So I had very similar experience. When I kind of woke up, I guess, if you will, or started to become more connected, is I was in a very long
Mm,
marriage, and it ended back in 2012. And I kind of went through the same thing. Excuse me. I was released when it was done. Does that
absolutely.
make sense?
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Just the energy shift. And I've had so many blessings and so much to be grateful for since that happened. So anyway, we have kind of a similarity there.
Well, and sometimes
Interesting.
it's scary to make those changes. Like in
Absolutely.
the moments you don't know what's in front of you. Like the unknown is a very uncomfortable
It's
emotion
scary.
and
Yeah.
feeling.
Yeah.
And a lot of people will stay. I think that is like the biggest hell is, could you imagine staying in that for a lifetime of
No.
like, that is the biggest hell that we create for ourselves.
Absolutely. Yeah. Again, like you said, super scary. What's next? But then everything came so easy
Mm-hmm.
after. So
Absolutely
easy.
does.
Yeah. Anyway. All right. Um, So you've gone through this awakening, and what has been next for you? Like how has your journey progressed and grown since then?
So I spend a lot of time thinking about like our purpose or like truly understanding how this reality works. But
Mm-hmm.
where I'm headed next is I'm going to be creating a venture fund for humanity. So, meaning investing into businesses that help people become their best selves. But with that understanding, why I believe like I can actually go out and do it is because I can understand what the human experience is and
Yeah.
why and how we operate, but also
Mm-hmm.
helping leaders become better versions of themselves. And
That
yeah,
is so needed.
well, if you look at it, like people are operating with their trauma and their anxieties, and
Exactly.
waking these people up to be their
Mm-hmm.
best selves. Like, I mean, going back to what we just talked about, the shift from post-divorce era.
Yeah.
Like, could you imagine being a leader in the marriage stage versus post? Like, you're a completely different human.
Yes.
And if people are showing up leading other organizations or even people in like political standpoints, like why would we not want them to be the best version of
Yeah.
themselves
Their
to show
best
up better?
selves. Yes. Oh, I love that. That's amazing. Because I can think of many experiences or people I know or have come in contact with that would be such a grand thing
Mm-hmm.
to like you said be able to connect with your best self in a role like that.
When a lot of people don't like, they get uncomfortable when they talk about like, oh, what could it be like if I was the best version of myself? But I think that goes back to like our humanness is like we
Mhm.
chose to come here.
Yeah.
Let's not be trying to leave.
Yeah.
Like we need to be here helping others remember what it's like to be human
Yeah.
and how to show up as like a genuine version of ourselves where we're healed in these wounds, whether it's like, I mean, the core of like humanness, money, sex, power, worth is like, until we have those things figured out and really understand how they operate, we're just walking around playing a skit in our head and pulling people in. Like,
Right.
and so like it really goes back to like we want to heal those things, we want to
Mhm.
understand it, and then those things typically become our greatest gift to share with others.
Yeah. Wow. That's fabulous. So we wanted to go in, you and I talked before, and we wanted to go in a little bit about what you've seen and people, what people are struggling
Mm-hmm.
with today.
Yeah.
Let's talk about that.
Um, and I think at the core, and this is like one of my mentors, at the core of like what every human wants is they want freedom,
Mm-hmm.
but they also want intimacy.
Yeah.
And so it's this like yin and yang thing where like we spiral out because we don't want to get too close, but then we want to get really close because we want that comfort. And
Right.
if you look at everything that people want, whether it's freedom to own their own business, to make
Mm-hmm.
their own money, or freedom in the sense of relationships to create, children and have that type of life, like that's what we're all fighting for.
Mm-hmm.
And I think a lot of us have forgotten that like as humans we forget that there are no rules, there are no boundaries. Like uh, use an example of like a bird in a cage, but the cage is always open, but the bird forgets to fly away.
Yeah.
And so we're sitting there feeling like we're stuck and we're trapped,
Mm-hmm.
but we just need to be reminded that at any point in time we can fly away and we
Yeah.
have our own freedom. And so it goes back to that freedom and that intimacy of we have to relearn what it's like to be on our own, be in the unknown, and to be able to come back in. So a lot of the anxiety, a lot of the stress is coming from like, what do I do? I'm too scared to be
The
my authentic,
fear.
to take this step.
Mm-hmm.
But until you take that step, you won't experience the freedom. And
Yeah.
then you also can't have the intimacy because you might be at home with all this anxiety, which is preventing you from being intimate
Right.
or having that closeness with your connections.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's this like double-edged dance that's happening right now. And all we need to be reminded of that we can do anything. We are the creators of our reality.
I love that. It's so true. And people, well, the outside world too always is getting in the way,
Mm-hmm.
right? On growing and, the fear and moving forward and stepping out of the bird cage,
Yep.
to move and do the things that we're passionate about and really love. once we find what we're passionate about, that's kind of what my experience has been. I found what I'm passionate about, and it's just easy now.
It comes so much easier. Like when you're
It's
in that
crazy.
flow
Yeah.
and your heart is really aligned with it,
Mm-hmm.
doors will start opening, things will start happening.
Yep.
Call 'em miracles, synchronicities,
Yep.
meant to be.
Yes.
Everything just kind of starts aligning when you stop trying to force
Mm-hmm. Just
everything and
let
just
it
let it happen.
happen. Yep. Yep. Okay, so is that the majority of what you feel like excuse me, the people are experiencing today, just the fear and not really realizing that they can step out of the cage?
Well, I think
Or
that's
is
like the crux of it.
uh-huh.
It'll obviously stem down into so many other different like societal things, like mental depression is at its highest.
Mhm.
Suicide rates are at its highest. Like there's a lot of people that are just so unhappy, but we have a lot of forces upon us, whether it's big pharma or big food. Like
Mhm.
we're not behaving or acting how we should, and so it's not even fair to us. Like how are we supposed to win a game that's been rigged or even know that the game is
Yes.
rigged?
Yeah.
So I have a lot of empathy for everything, but it's really we have to take full responsibility of our actions and our
Mhm.
environment and what we exist in.
Mhm.
And until we do that, we can't really free
Grow.
ourselves or grow.
Yeah.
It's just not going to happen. And so, I mean, there's so many other things that like are happening in the world, like on a bigger scale, but if you look at all the wars or different things and you look at you can use everything boils down to like you could call it an adult but like an organism like a human interaction,
Mhm.
but like we as like humans have forgot to be adults for ourselves and we've started telling other people how they should act,
Yes.
and therefore like we take power out of other people versus letting them find their own path and just giving
Mhm.
them the tools and resources. And so that's
Support.
something that I
Yeah.
see a lot happening in society.
Okay. And so I want to talk a little bit about how the science and the spiritual sides starting to come together. What's your take on all of that?
So, I mean, this is where it can get really fun and really nerdy. And
Yes, I bring it
uh,
on.
I'll give a lot of the credit to Michaela, my mentor, for kind of
Uh-huh.
exposing me. But you know, you look at a lot of the quantum physics that's coming out, whether it's
Mm-hmm.
like electromagnetics or quantum theory, the fact that time is all happening at the same time, both past, present, and future.
Uh-huh.
But a lot of what we're seeing in quantum physics of like entangled particles or electromagnetic like frequencies,
Mm-hmm.
everything is frequency. And so they're
Yeah.
actually being able to start measuring how the body interacts with this holographic universe, but everything down to the DNA that we have is holographic. So it's always sending and receiving information,
Yes.
and how we exist is always sending and receiving information. And
Mm-hmm.
so you call it synchronicities, you could call it timelines, but everything is happening all at the same time as it's meant to be.
Yeah.
And as we progress and grow, we can actually accelerate those timelines of what we might call in and be able to experience in this lifetime that some people might be able to say it's like predetermined, but I think
Mm-hmm.
we all have free will to be able to interact and make the choice if we want to be stuck or not, and be able to change those outcomes. But a lot of the like quantum stuff is coming in, and then something that I've been researching a lot is ultrasound on the brain. So a lot
Okay.
of the ancient Egyptians, there's theories that the pyramids also had ultrasound inducing qualities. So like one of the
Interesting.
main things that they're finding in research right now is transcranial stimulation to help depression. So electrical signals, everything is
Mm-hmm.
frequency, to
Mm-hmm.
help with depression.
Yeah.
Well, they're also finding that ultrasound is able to shut off certain parts of the brain so people can go into these peak states without psychedelics to be able to have these experiences that will help with anxiety and depression. And so
Wow.
everything relates back to a frequency and electricity, which is fascinating. That I mean, what the questions that I have are, how did people like Tesla and all these other great scientists,
Mm-hmm.
how did they know this so far before their time?
Exactly.
And
Yeah.
now it's resurfacing.
And
And I
now
think there's
here
a
it is. Yeah.
beauty in that.
Uh-huh.
I think there's absolute beauty that it's all coming back
Yeah.
right now.
It's so wild. So back to the pyramid thing. I'm so intrigued with Egypt and the
Mm,
pyramids and how did they build those and how, and just I watch all those TV
mhm.
shows anyway. And I went to Stonehenge this year.
You
I
did?
had the opportunity to
Oh,
go.
amazing.
It was freaking amazing. And, you know, they talked about the purpose of
Mm,
it and the time and all that stuff. But it's so interesting that things from hundreds of years ago, thousands
mhm,
of years ago, just like with Tesla and all those
mm,
great inventors, here we are today, and this stuff's coming up again. Like it's coming
mhm.
around again. So, what are your thoughts? Do you know what I mean? Do you know
Yeah,
what I
no,
mean?
I
Like, what are
totally.
your thoughts on that?
Well, I'm going to Greece at the end of this week, and we're going to go visit some ancient temples. And, one of the things I was thinking about was like, why are these totems or monuments left for humanity for us to be reminded of
Yes.
like why we're here in this time? And,
Mm-hmm.
I have my own theory about the pyramids, and some of great people are, finding more things out that are just like crazy synchronicities, like
Uh-huh.
completely Orion with Orion, or the slope angle is found all over the world. So it's like, how did one, they do it? And the thing that I find funny, like jokes aside, is like
Uh-huh.
there's no way they had the tech to build that. And
No
yet we're
way.
still in denial today that it wasn't possible. Like there's no way they rolled them up a hill and put them in
I
place.
know.
Like that just didn't happen. But also like the accuracy that they had
Uh-huh.
with the intention, like you don't just build a pyramid without some like crazy intention for humanity. And so
Yeah.
I believe like at its core was an ascension chamber. So like some of the greatest people of human history have gone through there and have been absolutely changed by it.
Uh-huh.
Um, but like why they were, it's such a fascinating thing to think about. Like why did society spend money and resources and time to leave these monuments for time and all eternity for
Yeah.
other people to kind of remember who they are as being human?
Yeah.
Which is fascinating. Like,
It
why
is.
why are we
It's
not
so
doing that today? Like,
right.
isn't that the greatest gift that we have, is to
Yes.
actually be here and enjoy all the chaos that comes with it?
Yes.
So, like, I'm super fascinated, and I think a lot of that, like,
Same.
those ideas and those technology are actually
Mm-hmm.
going to start coming back, and we're going to start understanding what they were trying to do or what they had.
Uh-huh.
I think people will talk about Atlantis, or uh, I think Atlantis had some very advanced frequency technology that helped the body heal faster,
Uh-huh.
or different things with genetics. And like, why was that only accessible at that time period and not today?
Yeah.
But we have to question, like, why?
Yeah. So I have a question. Do you believe in aliens?
Absolutely.
Same.
Absolutely.
Extraterrestrials.
Yeah, and
Yes.
they might look just like us, but and they
Right.
might also have other bodies because,
Right, right.
like,
Yeah. I'm 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 so intrigued by all that and um the pyramids, and maybe I had a past life. Maybe I was an Egyptian princess or something. I don't know. I just really resonate
mhm,
with that, and how I'm just super curious like you. Like I want to figure it. I want to know.
like something innately is curious. Like it's almost like you knew what it was,
I see
and then you're
past
like,
life. No.
so yeah, you just get really curious. I mean,
Yeah,
there's an intention behind that belief, and so you have to wonder, like, why are you so drawn to it?
I am. I love just the pyramids and just and I mean, you don't know how true like what you see in the
Hmm.
movies, or when you're looking at research and stuff like that, how true, like what did they really look at, like I mean the hieroglyphs and stuff,
Hmm.
there's some sort of sense,
Yeah.
but I'm just everything is so beautiful and stuff to me back in that era or whatever. And I still sitting here, you're like, oh, maybe, I'm like, maybe, because I've never understood why I've been so intrigued and so curious
Yeah.
about it. One day I'll visit for sure.
Yeah, and a lot of times, like, you'll show up and you'll be like, "Whoa, this feels way more real than I
Right, I'm
expected," and you're
home.
home. And like, I believe in past lives, and I believe
Yeah,
like
same.
we
Yeah, same
all
here.
played different roles, and we're
Mm-hmm.
coming back to help in different ways or
Yeah.
serve a different purpose. And so,
Uh-huh.
like, anybody that has those feelings, like, I Go
familiar,
explore, go
right?
explore it. Yeah.
Yeah, that's gonna have to be on the trip list for
Oh,
sure.
absolutely. Egypt has to be. It's one of those like pilgrimage, like in this lifetime, I have to go to
Right?
it.
The bucket list.
Yep.
That's amazing. So, do you, I asked you earlier if you do readings and you do not,
No.
but you mentioned that like you're very intuitive. Let's talk about that.
I think, one of my gifts is understanding people's energy. And,
Mm-hmm.
there's really special people that can understand, do mediumship and see to the other side. And
Mm-hmm.
I have this like block right there where it's like, nope, you need to be on this side
You don't want to
for this
quite venture
lifetime.
over there.
Um, because I think sometimes, like for my brain and my consciousness, I want to go there, and I
Uh-huh.
have to have a reminder of like, no, we're gonna stay here in this reality, this
Okay.
lifetime.
Uh-huh.
But like, I can understand energy and frequency and see how people are behaving really well,
Okay.
and understand why they're doing certain things a certain way if you get to understand and ask. And that's always been my gift, especially in like mushroom ceremonies or psilocybin, is to really go help people heal those things, because I can have deep empathy and compassion for what people are going through. And it's just always been something that I've been able to kind of do. One of my life lessons or themes was betrayal in this lifetime. And so
Mm-hmm.
betrayal typically leads to unconditional love. And when you're working with unconditional love, you can show up for people in various different circumstances to hold space for
Yes.
them,
Yes.
and actually show them what's possible when they can feel unconditional love, because a lot of people go through life without ever feeling.
And that's so sad, right? It's
So
so very
sad.
sad. Excuse
I just want to say, you being a Scorpio, everything you're saying, I'm like, yep, I understand that because I'm a Scorpio.
me.
Yeah.
I get it. I get it.
Yep, you get it, girl. When's
That's
your
funny.
birthday?
It's November 19th. What's yours? Awesome.
That's fun.
The pattern recognition and just everything you're talking about, I'm like,
Oh,
I totally get it.
We like our secrets a little bit more, but we can deeply see right through it.
Yeah, for sure.
that's so
We
fun.
understand it.
That's awesome. So you then do you consider yourself kind of a healer with the psilocybin? Just said that wrong. Psilocybin, right?
Yeah. So we are all healers. The way I like to kind
Okay.
of
Yeah,
see
that's
myself
true. Yeah.
is I let the experts do it,
Okay.
but I can also jump in and help out when needed,
Okay.
because I've been trained, I understand it, and
Uh-huh.
I like to put the right people in the right places.
Yep.
I like to see myself as someone who can kind of slip in, but
You're just kind of the helper
you can
when
say that.
needed.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's so cool. How do you, what made you, I guess, get interested in the ketamine and the psilocybin treatments? Like, what made you really go there? Just because of the trauma and you heard about it? Like, how did that all come about?
The big push was from home life and the situation that I had. And so for me, it was, how do I, one, get it for myself, but also my spouse, who was dealing with some pretty serious things at the time. And
Uh-huh.
it was, I had tried talk therapy, marriage therapy, everything. And so
Yeah.
when ketamine and psychedelics came into my life, I was so curious. And I was like, wait, why did they ban these in the 60s? Why do we not
Right.
talk about them? I grew up LDS. And
Mm-hmm.
so what's fascinating is like we're taught to have faith and listen to the spirit, and here the spirit is talking to me saying, go check this out. And I'm like,
You're
okay,
like, wait a
I
minute.
guess we got to go do this. And
Right.
so that was really like the entry point to bringing these other modalities in. And
Uh-huh.
I think anybody that has experienced psychedelics can have these crazy visions or see things that they might not explain. And those
Yeah.
things absolutely happened to me in a sense where I was like, okay, if this is real, what else is there to reality? And so
Uh-huh.
from like a trauma perspective, psychedelics or ketamine done in the right settings can have the most impact, like in a very quick way. There's still obviously other things that might need to be addressed, but I think it's such a beautiful tool that exists. And it's really sad that MDMA was just shut down by the government, by the FDA recently.
That was my next question.
Which is
Really?
it's really sad. And I think there's a lot of like really good people trying to make these things happen right now.
Uh-huh.
And it goes back to like we're dealing with humans that have not been able to think outside the box.
Yeah.
And I understand the balance of like we need to keep humans safe and there needs to be like
Yeah.
enough research done with the right integrity, because actually
Of course.
along with making psychedelics or MDMA legal, I also don't believe we have enough integrators to help like post therapy, because all of a sudden you're unlocking someone's deepest, darkest trauma, and most people can't hold space for that. Like most
Yeah.
talk therapists, they can't hold space for that. They would have no idea what to do, and it's going to take multiple sessions. And so I think there's a balance, but you know, you look at MDMA therapy and how it got delayed, and I just think it's sad that we're in 2024 and here alcohol and these other things are just rampant,
Yes.
but we can't get life-saving type of treatments in place. It
I'm getting the
just
chills. I know. I've never understood.
baffles me.
Yeah.
Baffles me.
Why? When there's so much good that could come out of it, right? And help so many people.
Yep.
That are truly struggling. Yeah, that it does. It makes you wonder.
And there's also questions of like, is that intentional? Is that not intentional?
I think it is.
Which is like the crazy thing that we have to deal with, that we're living in a society that we wouldn't want people to
Be
healed of
awakened?
that, be awakened or
Yeah.
healed. And you know, you look at the data back in the 60s, like they shut it down because they didn't want free thinkers. Like that was scary to them.
Yeah.
And that revolution is kind of coming back, whether it's with free speech or rights or these other things. And it's like, you can't keep the genie in the bottle for forever. Like
Yeah.
at some point it's going to burst. And that's all. I mean, that's kind of the law of energy too, is the more you push it down, the more it's got to
It's
come
gonna
back.
explode.
Yep.
Yeah. So do you think we're getting closer to that point of the energy explosion happening?
Something has to change. Like we
I
can't
agree.
continue with what it is. So it's
Yeah.
either, I mean, there's obviously swings in both places, but my hope is that we get leadership that can see and make changes. And it might not be pretty for the little bit, but they're hard changes that need to be made and understood. And I think as long as people can have the ability to make choices for themselves and get all the information,
Yes.
that's all that's needed.
Yeah.
That I think innately we know what's right for us, but I think we're also being fed a lot of things right now that are curated for one side's opinion, which I personally, I have a problem with, because I think everybody should have the freedom to see exactly what the facts are and not be lied to.
Yep.
And then let them make the choice.
Exactly. Get the facts and then have them make their own decisions, right? Yeah.
And it goes back not just on a grand scale, but everything from your home to the food that you buy. Like if we really knew what was happening to it, we'd probably make much better decisions and how we live,
For sure.
live our lives.
I've been kind of on a food, I don't know what you'd call it, like a freak out. I see stuff online, and of course we can't believe everything we see online, but how much our food here is played with and messed with.
All the time.
And when I went to London, everything's fresh there. You go to the grocery store and everything is fresh. Like they have the fresh sandwiches, the fresh fruit, the fresh veggies. Like there's not a lot of packaged processed stuff.
Yep.
You know?
Or you go over there and you're like, wait, why can I have all this pasta and I don't feel sick or I didn't gain weight? And you're like, what is happening here in the U.S.?
Yeah. I have a wheat allergy, and I figured this out probably about 10 years ago. And I don't necessarily think maybe that it's the wheat. You know, it's what's the wheat being treated with that bothers my body. I get like hives, not bad, but
enough where you're like, I don't want this.
Yeah, and it will make my wrists ache and things. So I try not to eat like the pasta and stuff. But anyway, yeah, it's interesting how different countries don't. I don't know. They eat fresh. And here we are feeding this food to children too.
Which is sad. And
Yeah.
they have, I mean, you think another thing that's kind of been on my mind, you talk about children, but I think this idea of legacy has been on my mind, where I think we've lost sight of making decisions for generations to come, and we're only making decisions for like the next few years, whether that's in our life or in like society. And I think we need role models to come back and start saying, like, how does this impact 8, 10 generations from now? What is the world going to look like then? How do we start making the changes now, even though it could be painful?
Right.
But like, how do we change that whole direction of where we're headed?
Yeah.
And start thinking a little bit bigger outside of just ourselves and maybe the trauma that we have at the moment, to really help benefit future generations.
I agree with that. Yeah, they're not looking far enough in the future, because I'm a little worried for like my granddaughter that's sitting in the other room, like
What is she, what chance does she have? I mean, she's stepping into a world of chaos where it's like, you have to look over your shoulder everywhere you go. Like, you can't just play outside and think you're safe
and be
anymore.
safe. Yeah, like when I was young, we'd run around the streets at night, and not in the middle of the night, but when it was dark, or I was 10, 12 years old, riding my bike to the 7-Eleven on the corner, or walking down there. And I would never, like my daughter's 10, I would never allow her to walk up the street to the gas station, It's so sad that.
I did a lot more than you think then, because.
Wait, what?
That's a Scorpio coming out.
Yeah.
Mom, if you only knew.
Excuse me?
Well, I did a lot more than beyond what my kids do. So.
Oh, well, yes, you did too.
Yeah.
I agree, but probably not even as much as I did growing up.
Maybe.
You're like, maybe.
He's like, if you only knew.
I
Mom.
hear these stories of my kids will one day be like, oh, I did that when I was living in the basement. I'm like, excuse me?
Yeah, like, where did this come from?
Yeah, you find out secrets later, and that's fine. But anyway, they're safe. That's all I care about.
I feel like as parents we kind of know, but at the same time we're like suspicious.
Yeah, suspicious. That's the right word for it. We're suspicious, and just get confirmation when you're older and adults.
That's parents' intuition.
Right. That's so awesome. Anyway, do you have anything else you would like to talk about?
Well, I think, at the end of the day, I think whether it's curiosity or inspiration, I think what's beautiful about this stage that you've created is like, whether it was like, I had a beautiful moment and we share a dear friend Taco, but like I was able to bring my grandma, my mom, and my sister to go see her.
Yes.
And they had never dabbled in like spirituality.
And what did
like
they
that.
think?
I think it blew their mind, because they're like quiet after, but it's like the things that come up are just like
speechless. Yeah.
Or it's like one of those things where it's like, it's too weird to talk about, so we don't talk about. But it's like,
right.
For me, it was like super cool to see, like, as you go down this path, this actualization of like, we can actually change other people's lives.
Yes.
And being that inspiration for others is like, it makes doing all the hard work worth it. And doing it, for me, it like makes me want to do it faster, or like lean into it more and become my authentic self, because now you start seeing the ripple effects in your family or your community. And so for me, like, it goes back to like, we're here on earth to be human. Yeah. Like, let's not try and escape it. And then once we do know like what we're here for, like, go inspire others. Like, we have too many people wanting to escape or like go just meditate all the time. And I was thinking about this today, but it's like, once you found yourself, like, go out and share, like, just be yourself, and people will naturally be like, why are you so happy? Like, why are you glowing? Like, why are you able to do the things that you're doing? And then it starts inspiring people. Yeah. Because, part of my journey has been like, I realize you can't save anybody. No. Like, we're not here to save anyone, but we can inspire
I want
them.
to, but
yep. We want to.
Yeah, but you're right.
And so that would be like my last thought of like, love is just to be able to step out and inspire, because that's all we have at the end of it. Go give somebody a smile, because those moments, they leave real quick.
Yes, they do. And I always am told by people I'm around, family, friends, and they're always just telling me, you're just so calm. You're just calm, and you never get excited. I mean, excited, angry is what I'm talking about. You're just so calm, and I love that I have that effect on people, to be able to calm them or make them feel comfortable.
Yeah.
And I love that my friends and my family can come to my home and they just make themselves at home and get into whatever, and I don't care. And, they're just comfortable. Yeah. And I love that I have that energy and that people feel that when they're around me. So, yeah, I'm very grateful for that. Yeah.
You have amazing energy.
Thank you. Elsie, did any questions come through at all?
So we have Taco in the chat.
Yes.
Oh, Taco.
And she's talking about how the government wants us to be divided. Yeah. It's easier to control us.
Yeah.
And
to that point, does she have anything else on that?
What do you think? Do you have anything else to say about that, Taco? I feel like, I don't know. I feel like the government wants us to live a certain way, because I've been going through some realizations where it's like I'm meant for more than what I'm living.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
That makes sense.
Well, a talking point to that is when you're living in a reality of division, you actually can't be your full self. So it's actually, the CIA wrote a mind control book about that. It's
wow.
like the way to cause people to not be themselves is to create chaos and division. And that's what we're seeing right now.
Yeah, she says, united we can do amazing things.
Mm-hmm.
But it's getting outside of ourselves and unifying and being able to see past differences. They don't want us to see that right now, which is the sad part.
Right.
It's like, why we should be arguing about, like, we should all have the same fundamentals, but we should be arguing about different things. We're arguing about completely opposite stuff right now.
Right.
And it's absolutely crazy.
Yeah. And scary too, right? Yeah. Does Taco have any more statements, comments?
That's all I got.
I want to thank you so much for coming. It's been an amazing experience, and I would definitely love to reschedule you down the road and get together and talk about more interesting stuff. I always learn so much, and I am definitely going to have to do the float thing.
I highly recommend it. And thank you for having me on and speaking to your audience today. And
you're welcome.
If there's anything that comes up in the future, we need to dive deeper, I'm more than happy to come back and share some thoughts.
Fabulous. That sounds fabulous. All right. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. And if you would like to submit a subject or would like to be a guest on the podcast, go to the website, howdoyouspirit.com, and get in touch with us. And we'd love to reach out to you and get you scheduled. And go to the same, the end I always get choked up because I just get blown away. howdoyouspirit.com, submit questions if you would like us to answer questions online. Anyway, thank you again, everyone, for joining, and we will see you soon.
Take care, guys.